Yay! We are recording.
Live, baby.
Amazing. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Yay! I'm so excited for this. You have no idea. I'm also like super duper prepared. I've got 2 glasses of water.
2. I've only got 1.
I've got 2 and I've got a tea.
I had a rooibos tea just before. Kate made me some tea and a rusk.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I was just like, I even organized with Duran. I was like, do not interrupt me. There's dinner in the fridge. This might take a while. So now that we got here, I am going to introduce you, Scott. So I had to write this all out because it's a big introduction. So guys, this human, I'm just so excited to share him with you because he is just a wealth of knowledge and epic vibration. So keep listening for some big expansive shifts into a new consciousness. What he shares is from love in the highest vibration. It is my hope that all who listen become aware of the impact that is possible for all life on this planet and the planet itself when you make some small shifts in your mindset, lifestyle, and diet. So in 2019, humanity received a warning. 30 of the world's leading scientists released the results of a massive 3-year study into global agriculture and declared that meat production is destroying our planet and jeopardizing global health. So we are in crisis, mentally, spiritually, and physically, as is this planet and its inhabitants that we share it with. So today, I welcome on the We Are Wildfire podcast an environmental scientist, passionate educator, and activist on a mission to inspire and encourage people to question their relationship with nature. He advocates for a transformation of governance, law, and culture to be based on earth-centered philosophies and principles with the hopes of creating a world which represents all members of the earth community. So stay tuned for a discussion around veganism and behavior change, animal rights and earth rights versus human rights, what speciesism is, and the link between all of this and human consciousness.
Yes.
This guy is not just any earth and animal lover, guys. He's got the goods to back it all up. He studied Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Law, and he is taking this matter to where it's actually going to make a difference. He is a member of the Animal Justice Party and is running as a candidate in the Queensland state governance elections on the October 31st for the seats of Burleigh. He also ran in Queensland local government elections on the Gold Coast Division 13 in March 2020. So please help me welcome another hippie that gets shit done, a change the world type scientist hippie, a sea shepherd ocean protector, a lit up conscious leader, beautiful earth dad, and avocado enthusiast. This beautiful soul, Scott Wallace. Welcome.
What a freaking introduction, man. You got me like just powering right now. Wow. Sure.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
I am so super amped to have this conversation with you. Seriously, I've been it is a big one. It is a huge discussion. It's got so many angles and little deep areas that we can go into. And I'm just excited to see where it leads. Like this podcast is all about having these deep, meaningful conversations and inspiring others to think about these big questions. So
Nicole, thank you so much for having me on and for the invite to jump on your podcast and to expand into this space and really go down some rabbit holes and start unlayering, reconditioning, unpacking, exploring, and just delving into it
making magic. So guys, I want to just first mention that this is a level up type podcast and it's a level up conversation about veganism. So if you want to know where vegans get their protein from, please just go Google it. We're not going to be discussing that here. We are going deep. So plants do have protein and we're not going to be discussing that right here. But
even fruit has protein.
Even fruit has protein. But if you want to know basics about veganism, I'm sure someone will have a cool top 10 facts to know about veganism. But we are going deep. We're going all the big questions, the one that really cut through your ego and go straight to soul. So See you on the other side. Here we go. So Scott, I want to start right at the beginning with you.
Yep.
Because like many, you were not vegan at the beginning. So something shifted and something changed. Tell me about that shift.
Well, I've really started reframing how I think about it, because I used to say, oh, I went vegan 5 years ago, right, in 2015. But I realized I was vegan 5 years ago. And from my birth, I believe we are born with compassion, with love, respect, with kindness for ourselves, for other beings around us. And unfortunately, we're conditioned out of that, and our actions haven't aligned with that for a long time. And for me, for most of my life, I was living out of alignment with the values and beliefs that I profess to hold. So it was 5 years ago that I made the decision to stop supporting animal exploitation, to not consume animal products. And the sort of lead up into that is, like, I grew up, my family's Croatian, and I've been back 7 times now. And my lifestyle and culture was largely revolving around the ocean. So I was always in the water snorkeling, in Australia and in Croatia. I was fishing from a young age. I've got photos of me, like, so small, just out fishing, enjoying that coastal lifestyle. And it gave me a really great sense of identity and connection with the coast, and with that form of relationship with the ocean, right? And even from a young age, I had a hand spear, and I was out, fishing. I was catching fish, octopus, eels, like you name it, I was involved, right? And when I moved to Queensland, I ended up studying environmental science, and really wanted to understand environment, wanted to understand nature connection, wanted to know, how can I understand what's going on to make things better? And like a lot of my friends at the time, we would do research into the most sustainable seafood. So we wanted to eat the most sustainable seafood because that was the best for our footprint. And that made me feel good as someone who claimed to be an environmentalist. I was supporting the right products. Yeah. So I was studying environmental science. My major was in marine biology and ecotourism. So really passionate about ocean protection. I was big into scuba diving. I was also fishing a lot at the time. I lived on a houseboat for 6 years with my parents. And, then I started to ask questions. I would go for a scuba dive and I'd spend an hour underwater hanging out with beautiful marine creatures. And then I'd go up on our surface interval. We'd go get some lunch and we'd sit down and eat fish and chips, right? And that was like part of the culture, part of the experience. So... And we'd sit around and we'd be, chowing our fish and chips. And it's like, I was just down half an hour ago, just interacting with these species in their natural habitat. And now I'm paying someone to catch them and kill them and to eat their flesh, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I started asking these questions. And I remember one of the catalysts when I was younger, I was maybe 13 or 14 at the time. And this was in Croatia. And I knew how to read the environment to see where octopus lived. So I ended up finding where an octopus was, and I managed to coerce him out of his hole and ripped it out, brought it up into the jetty. And I used to just kill them straight away. And then my grandmother would have a pot ready upstairs where we could just put it in, and then we'd have that for lunch, right? Oh. But on this day,
they're my favorites.
They're super intelligent. They're super intelligent, man, right? But on this day, I was playing with it and I didn't kill it straight away. And I was like, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to kill this one. I'd done it for years. Why now am I not just quickly just killing it? So I started to question it. And I don't actually know if in the end I ended up killing it or whether I put it back. But that was a real turning point. I was like, I see the being, I see the life in this creature. I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. So that's something called,
I feel that.
That's something called cognitive dissonance, right? Where we hold two conflicting beliefs, two conflicting thoughts, which for me on a personal level was, I'm a marine scientist, conservationist, and an ocean protector. The other part of me, very real part of me, was I exploit sea life, I catch and kill fish, and I'm contributing to, pillaging the oceans. So how do you align these two beliefs? How do you blend the two worlds?
Yeah.
And this was really big questions for me. It was when I started asking this stuff that I thought, there's not alignment here. And I started to question what I was eating. I started to do more research, and it was only, so in 2015, I'd finished my environmental science degree, and I started to hear a little bit about animal farming and how bad for the environment it was.
Yeah.
And I watched a documentary called Cowspiracy, and I highly recommend everyone to watch it if you haven't. Do your own research though, verify the facts, look into it and dig deeper. We've got to question everything we're taught and everything we're given, right?
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
So after that documentary, I really dug deep and started to research more into the impacts of animal farming. And the animal farming sector, animal agriculture, is the single most destructive industry on the face of our planet. We're talking leading, driver of biodiversity loss, species loss, ocean dead zones, massive driver of greenhouse gases and climate change, water pollution, water use. 70 billion land animals each year are having their throats slit so we can consume their flesh, right? There's a massive impact. It's huge. So having come to this awareness, and this was in 2015, right? After I'd finished my studies.
Yeah.
Because the concerning thing, I was not taught this information in my science degree. So I studied 4 years at a university which had the first environmental science course in the country, and we weren't taught this information. So there was this massive suppression of information, huge. And
do you think that's changing now? But that it's become a lot more, what's the word? Exposed. Yeah.
The truth is surfacing.
Yeah, that they have to kind of now teach it, because I think they do teach a little bit of that in the environmental sciences in South Africa. But it's only recent.
5 years ago.
Yeah, I think
the concerning thing is, even if it wasn't as big as an environmental footprint,
it should
still educate people. Why aren't the scientists being taught how destructive this industry is? So the scientists aren't being taught. The environmental organizations, it's rare that you see them talk about how destructive meat is for the environmental footprint. They don't tell people, hey, if you want to minimize your footprint, the single quickest, cheapest, most effective way to minimize your footprint is to adopt a whole foods, plant-based diet. That's backed up by science. That's backed up by facts. That's the way it is. So they don't promote this.
Because that was in 2015, right? In 2010 was when the UN released their documents saying that, guys, it's the best way to stop this, to help it in any way. I think I've got the quote here somewhere, but
2010, United Nations Environmental Program.
Yes.
They said we need a global urgent shift to a plant-based diet and food production systems, urging the world 10 years ago, hey, we've got to look at veganism. We've got to look at shifting our food. And did you hear about that?
Ago.
Like, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. So you were studying it. I mean, you would think, okay, cool. In the public, maybe we don't hear about these things because, I mean, there's so much going on in the public. But you would think studying an environmental degree that they would have. I mean, it's not like, okay, it got released and then they didn't have time to update their stuff. This was like 5 years later, you studied an environmental degree, and the UN had declared in their report that a global shift towards vegan diet is vital to save the world from hunger, fuel poverty, and the worst impacts of climate change. They declared it.
Yep.
Wow.
So that was 10 years ago. And the uptake of that, obviously there's so much momentum and growth and expansion around veganism, and it's inevitable that it's going to continue to grow. It's something that can't be stopped because at its core, there's compassion, there's non-violence, there's love, there's respect. So like that's going to prevail over all the fucking darkness in the world. It's inevitable. And it's just about supporting that momentum. So back in 2015, when I came across this information, it's only after I watched this documentary and I started digging deeper I woke up, I went to sleep that night after watching Cowspiracy, cried myself to sleep. I was so like angry and frustrated, and I knew I can't continue to eat meat, eggs, and dairy and support the animal agriculture industry, because I know now it's destroying the planet. And I, as an environmental scientist, as someone who professed to be a conservationist, someone who cares about sustainability, I needed to change my actions in order to align with what I believed. And that was like, that was such a big shift for me, getting that integrity. And
so I want to know.
I was angry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Institutions. I was angry at my university. I was angry at the environmental organizations. I was like, why are they not empowering and educating people on the truth?
Well, I'm sure we'll get into that why. But I wanted to ask you, Scott, so the perception and what we see is a lot of kind of hippie type, tree loving, weirdo spiritual people being vegan. So I wanted to touch on, and can you describe and explain the link between spirituality and going vegan?
Sure. Well, this is something that I've really just started to delve into lately. You know, I've been doing a lot of deeper work, delving into shadow work, and really looking at my values and beliefs. And since meeting my partner, my understanding on the universe, and we're all interconnected, and the energy that we're all sharing, I am you and you are me, and it's all one. It's, you know, it's one living, breathing organism. Ooh, essentially.
I got all the feels.
Like octopus arms.
All the vibes.
Right?
Vibing.
So like on that deeper spiritual level, it's like people at their core, I believe we are compassionate human beings. We're loving human beings, and we want to tread lightly as much as possible. We don't want to inflict suffering on other beings. We don't like experiencing pain. We don't like when we see our family and friends and you know, companion animals and other beings suffering. So people don't want that. But what we're not realizing is when we're purchasing animal products, there is a lot of violence. It's coming from abuse and exploitation. So looking at one aspect from like a consumption perspective, if we have an animal that's been, you know, genetically modified and bred to essentially grow big and fat, nice and quickly, much quicker than it normally would. They're kept in a cage or in a pen or somewhere on a farm where they're restricted, their freedoms are, and then they're pushed onto a truck with their brothers, with their sisters, whoever it is, and they get to a slaughterhouse and they hear screaming, they smell the blood, they in terror. They know that shit's going down and it doesn't feel good. They know, and adrenaline kicks in, all that stress. And
that's going into the food as well.
Going into the food, of course. So, and even if that's sort of
helps people.
These products, you know, it's considered product, but it's the flesh of another being. It's a someone, not a something that we're eating. That's violence, and that energy is being consumed by people. And that's on an energetical level, like 70 billion land animals are being killed each year.
Slaughtered.
70 billion. That's not a small number. Like here in Australia, I looked at the stats a few months ago, and it was 180 million animals in 3 months.
180 million.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So think about that energy that's going around. That's so heavy. And we're not in their shoes. So there's that energetical, you know, level of consuming these products that have come from violence, that have come from suffering. And
you touched on as well, like being a child and being not, you know, starting out as a baby, as a toddler, not wanting to hurt animals and stuff. And
perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, you were conditioned to eat meats and do this, and I mean, this is just such a thing for me, and I have such experience with this because I decided to raise my child vegan, which it took a long time to convince my hubby to do this, but my hubby is almost not fully vegan, but he's almost there. I don't know if he'll ever go vegan, but
every vegan or said every vegan
ever. Yeah, I'm just like, don't worry. What's that thing that Ross does? Unagi.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it started with him. I was like, I'm gonna go vegetarian. He was like, what? You can't go vegetarian? Like, that was 5 years ago. And I was like, whoa, like, this is my body. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to have to do anything, because he's had experience with all the other crazy girlfriends and stuff that as soon as they choose to go vegan or vegetarian, that they force their partners to do it. Yeah. And I was kind of like, well, you know me, you know that I'm crazy, but not in that way.
Yeah.
And you know that I wouldn't do that. So that was 5 years ago. And over time, he's kind of caught up to me. But we decided that, you know, Jackson would be vegan because of the pure thing that at the end of the day, he gets to choose what he wants to do. I'm not going to force him when he is actually aware of what it is that he's eating and all that kind of stuff. And he decides when he is older that, yeah, cool, I want to eat a chicken or a cow or something. That's totally his choice. He's got his own life. I don't want to enforce anything on him. But when he's 2...
I'm going to challenge you on that. But keep going.
Okay, cool. No, I love the challenge. So yeah, but when he's 2 and 3 and 4 and he has no clue what the hell is going on, then, or he's got a lot of clue, let me tell you. But I want to choose the non-violent option for him until he's got a choice to be like, you know, and now I want to choose a different way. But right now, I want to condition him on the opposite side, the non-violent side, so that one day when he grows up and he goes, well, why didn't you raise me vegan? You were vegan. Why didn't you raise me vegan? And I would have been like, well, you know, it wasn't my place. So I'm your mother. Like, I'm
exercise
going to
your judgment, your knowledge and awareness with what you think is the best for your child.
Exactly.
For their health, for everything. Like,
it gets so much like criticism from a lot of people, which is fine because I'll just like brush it off. But the other day, and guys, I promise you that I'm really not trying to indoctrinate my child into anything, but I don't feed him any animal products. I've never been like, oh, you know, people kill animals or anything. Like, he's 2. I don't want to scare him. But the other day I said to him, Jackson, do you eat cows? And he was like, no. And I was like, do you eat ducks? He was like, no. I was like, do you eat horses? No, don't be silly, mommy. So like, I was just like, this is such a beautiful thing. Like, he eats vegetables and plants and smoothies, and it's amazing. And he is a child, and his true nature is compassion.
Yeah, exactly. So, because if I take, thank you so much for sharing that. I watched that video. I think put it on Instagram as a story or something, right? Like, you take Jackson, you take any child, you take anyone who's listening, go back, however old you are, go back to your first few years, right? And if you're a young child and in front of you, someone comes and puts a rabbit and an apple in front of you, right? My money is on the fact that you're not going to rip the head off the bunny rabbit, kill it, and start playing with the apple. Like, we've got that innate respect and compassion to treat other beings kindly, to love them, to protect them, and to eat the plants, to eat the food, to eat the carrots, the apples, you know, all of this stuff. So we teach and indoctrinate children to normalize violence, to normalize exploitation of animals, and that goes unquestioned. And that's why the ideology of carnism, which is the complete opposite to veganism. Carnism is this invisible, violent ideology. It's dominant in our society that conditions us to eat certain animals. It's what tells us that, you know, you love your dog, but you pay someone to kill and eat the cow, for example. And so we teach kids the opposite. We disconnect them. And this whole system of animal exploitation starts from a young age. And I really believe that speciesism, which is, so just like we discriminate based off someone's membership to a particular race or a particular sex, for example, like sexism, racism, speciesism is when we discriminate based off an individual's membership to a particular species. So we have these hierarchies where dogs are considered more important in our Western society than the cow, right? And then there's you know, this order of priority of moral value and respect and kindness. And that discrimination is speciesism. And that's the first form of discrimination we teach children, is to love the dog, to eat the cow, to eat the chicken. But as you mentioned earlier, like Jackson's just like, no, I don't eat those animals. But we've got to be able to make that link, because kids don't realize that they're eating an animal. If you put that animal in front of them and say, what you're eating is this, it's like its brother. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No,
you
kids
can go
get
check
distressed.
some of those videos
like,
on YouTube of kids finding out that they've been eating cows. They're distraught
because they're still connected.
Yeah,
the kids are still connected, and
it's heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah, but they realize, and they're still connected, and that's the beautiful thing, is to stay connected to our core values, to our core beliefs, and to unwind and unpack some of the conditioning, which is what I've experienced through exploring veganism and animal rights, and can relate to my experiences over the year and just with kids these days. Like, because I've seen the research into the demographics in terms of who is vegan within the population, right? It's hard to describe. So
come on, Mr. Scientist, dumb it down for us peeps.
No, let me show you. I don't know if this is going to work on a graph. No, it's going to be like all over the place. So the most, in terms of the percentage of population, the younger you are, the higher the proportion of people that are vegans, right? As you get older, the number actually reduces. So it's the younger generation that are awakening, that are realizing, going, for so many reasons, they're going vegan, right? And I'm going to talk about the reasons why people go vegan. And then the older you get, the less likely you are to be vegan. And so the data is so clear. So because someone who's in their 30s, 40s, 50s has had decades of conditioning, decades of not questioning the norm, decades of eating animals, supporting animal exploitation, loving their dogs, paying people to murder and slit the throats of cows so they can have a burger. It's gone unquestioned. And this is intentional. It's been suppressed. It's out of mind. It's out of sight. It's invisible out there in the world. And it's about time we got questioning these things, because it's so important.
Hell yes. And this is the time for questioning. This is this is the time for literally the great awakening. Like, people are waking up to a whole lot of other bullshit, and you know, back in the day, even if you did question it, you would never say it out loud, because your community would outcast you to be this crazy person. Right now, we got a lot of crazy people. So if you want to be crazy, come and join us. It's all good. But Scott, I actually wanted to go back. You mentioned speciesism. So I wanted to have a chat about this, because I also read in one of your posts that you said, like, we must acknowledge and uphold the rights of other members of the earth community to exist and thrive, evolve, free from the destruction of human interference. So what I wanted to ask
free from
is,
destructive human interference. Free from
destructive human interference. I'm getting so excited I can't even speak anymore. So if we as humans can't even decide that us as human beings are equals, with what we're seeing with Black Lives Matters and that whole movement, and that's been going on for decades as well, why do you think that we can actually make an impact with seeing animals as equals and being sentient beings? Like, do you think that they actually have a chance?
Of course, definitely. And the often one of the excuses and one of the challenges people have to animal rights activism is like, but why don't you care about humans? Well, we do. We care about humans. We care about non-violence and compassion for human beings, for non-human animals, for all life, right? There's nothing stopping someone advocating for human rights and being a vegan. You know, when it comes to environmental issues, you don't see people coming to environmentalists and say, why don't you care about humans? Or you don't hear them going to the human rights advocates, why don't you care about environment? Why do you only care about humans? You know? So out of all the areas of social justice, like this is the only one that I've seen so many people be like, why do you just care about animals? We don't just care about animals. People
Well,
are
yeah,
vegan.
people say that same thing over and over with the Black Lives Matters movement. It's like, you can't go, like, people are like, oh, but all lives matter, but you can't go to a anti-breast cancer rally and go to them and be like, but all cancer matters. Like, all earthlings matters, yes, but we have to focus on different areas. And I think with you focusing on animal and earth rights is because they don't actually have a voice.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, you look at the amount of efforts and energy around the globe, globally, for the advancing and upholding human rights. And whether you look at it in terms of the people that are involved, organizations, the involvement at an international level, there's so much happening. There's so much happening. And there's fewer animal rights organizations. There's very few animal rights organizations, and very few, vegan organizations. But there's more and more popping up, and there's groups that are getting their alignment in check, and their integrity. And we look at the root cause of, like, the discrimination against people of a different race, right? There's discrimination, there's racism. It's saying we are superior to you, or our interests are superior, and your interests and who you are is inferior to us. Now we apply the same type of discrimination on animals. We say you are less than us, you aren't as important as us, and you don't need to see the only extent to which we need to see non-human animals and human animals as equal is in their right to live freely, their right to not be enslaved, their right to not be treated as property. Animals don't need the rights to drive a car, to vote, there's different rights that different species should have, right? So it's about those fundamental rights, because yes, there are differences in terms of cognitive capacity of different animals and humans, sure. But we shouldn't discriminate based off those differences in cognitive capacity. Because say if there's, an animal which isn't as intelligent, right? This is what I don't get. Like, turtles will travel the world for 30 years and come back to the same beach where they were born 30 years later to lay a clutch of eggs. They travel the world without a navman, without a TomTom or a Google Maps. So they've got, like, this deep instinct and intelligence and knowing, and birds with their homing abilities. Just because they have different cognitive capacity doesn't mean we should discriminate against them. With disabled humans or people that have a mentally affected humans, we don't decide, we're going to kill them and eat them because they have less intelligence or they're different to us. So it's all discrimination. It's discrimination against animals. We're discriminating against humans, and nothing stops people advocating for all these issues in the world and being vegan, because it's not one or the other. Like, people don't just have one passion and go, oh, this is all I'm going to do. I'm just going to advocate for this. We do as much as we can with what we know and where we're at in our life. We don't know all the answers. We don't know all the truths. And the truths that we do know, probably going to get challenged the shit out of next week. And we're going to realize, actually, that was a flawed belief. Time to reassess, time to reprogram. And another year later, find out other information and go, okay, so expand, be open to all of that. And Nicole, the issues that you're passionate about, you're going to put time and energy into that, to advocate for them, to educate people on those issues. And I have maybe some similarities. Maybe for those few topics, we share commonalities with. But there's different things I'm going to advocate for. So what people need to do is to figure out what they're passionate about, what they're interested in, what do they want to help in the world, what do they want to do that's going to contribute to positive change, and to do as much of that as possible. But especially for activists and advocates, we get super burnt out because there's so much injustice, and especially with animal rights stuff, there is suffering, there's violence, there's exploitation. It's really dark shit that's happening. And that can take its toll. So we can't change the entire world, but collectively we are, and we will continue to. So
I love that, because I've actually written here that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction that the planet has ever seen. Where extinction rate is up to 10 1,000 times faster than what is considered normal. So up to 200 species is becoming extinct every single day.
And a leading driver of that, animal agriculture.
So that's the meat and dairy consumption is driving that climate change. So I want to know, what do you say to the people who say that we're too far gone, that they say that what I do as an individual is not going to make a difference?
That's a lie, because we're not being honest with ourselves. Step into your power. Realize that everything we do, everything we say, our choices, our decisions have an impact on the world around us. All of our actions and our non-actions have an impact. So realize, despite whether it's friends, family, government, society have told you, you are fucking so powerful. Your influence in this world is immeasurable. You're going to have an impact. So you need to be aware of what impact you are having on this world, to step into that, to realize fully what's happening and what you need to be accountable for. And if you're happy with that, keep doing it. If you're not, then it's about changing and shifting what we're doing. So the collective impact of individual actions is something that's so powerful. And we are having it, like, the reason why there is climate change, the reason why all these animals are being killed, the reason why anything exists in the world is because of our collective choices and decisions. So we may just be one person on this planet, but if you go down the road and decide to violently abuse your neighbor, that's going to have an impact on their life.
A ripple
if you go down to the dog park and kick a dog and kill a dog, that's going to have an impact. So you do have an effect on the world. So to realize what that is,
and it takes courage. I think it takes, I mean, when you think that what you do doesn't impact the world, I mean, like you said, just take your power back. Seriously, it takes courage to take your power back. But I mean, that is what you need, is you need a little sprinkle of courage. 20 seconds of insane courage can change the world. So actually, I mean, I've got a quote here from Jane Goodall. So, and I think it's perfect. It just happens to be written in my book as one of my favorites. So it says, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference. You need to just decide what kind of difference you want to make.
Exactly. Such a beautiful quote. And that, captures it so well. And when we work together, like, it's one action, but then it actually links up with everyone else's actions. Like, apply the same thing to racism or sexism. Well, why does it matter if I stop being racist? There's still racist people out there. It does matter. And there may still be racist people out there forever. But if you think it's wrong, don't support racism. Stop being racist, So it's really just to inspire and encourage people that we can make a difference. We have a huge effect on the world, and you may feel like insignificant at times, and it's just one drop in the ocean, just your choice and your purchase power. But it's so big. Like, for example, I used to go fishing regularly. Before I went vegan, some of the last meat I was eating was kangaroo, wild caught kangaroo, that someone else had killed and shot somewhere out west and brought to the city, or fish that I was eating that I killed myself, right? Now, it was just me fishing with my dad on the weekend, couple of brim, some snapper, and it doesn't seem like a lot, right? When you see that there's like 800,000 or 900,000 people in Queensland that are recreational fishermen, and there's all those people every day just catching a few fish. It's just a few fish. It's only this much. It totals up to something enormous. So the cumulative effect of individual actions is something we need to be aware of, because at the moment, 3/4 of the ocean's fisheries are either fully exploited, overexploited, or depleted. 3/4.
Sure.
Sustainable fishing is a myth. There's no basis for it. Everything's all connected. All the oceans. it's the global health. It's one health. It's not
what is
just
that
this
called?
area.
Greenwashing, like sustainable fishing, greenwashing.
Yeah, greenwashing. And that's, one way to entice and appeal to consumers who want to do the best. People want to make the right ethical choice. It's like I had an app on my phone which said, okay, this tuna is not good. This tuna is bad. This tuna has this bycatch. They use these methods. Okay, well, this is a tuna that I'm going to purchase because I wanted to feel good about my choices. And people do things usually with the best of intentions, but the marketing and the propaganda that comes in, especially when it comes to the consumption of animal products, look on the labels and there's happy cows in a green field running around.
Yeah.
Right?
So
And
talk about that with free range farming, because there's a lot of that movement. Same with the fisheries and stuff, like sustainable fisheries. Well, let's a lot of people are like, well, I don't eat factory farmed cows. I eat free range cows. So this is a discussion about not only animal cruelty and being vegan, but it's going deeper into the fact that being vegan or choosing a plant-based diet is has an impact on climate change. So let's talk about the free farming. What are they called?
Yeah, well, free range farming.
Free range,
yeah. And one thing that I've got all these dot points of stuff that I want to get back to. There's so much. So one thing I just want to mention here is that with veganism, so just want to divert a little bit for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
That way people have got some framing and some structure. So veganism is a lifestyle and a philosophy. It's a way of being and interacting with yourself, with the world around you, and with different beings. Veganism isn't a diet, right?
Yeah.
So because at its core, veganism is about non-violence, and not supporting animal exploitation and avoiding supporting animal exploitation as much as possible and as much as practicable. It's not about being zero footprint and zero harm. It's about reducing where we can our contributions to animal exploitation.
Yeah.
Because I read, even in the roads, they're putting blood into the tar, right? So am I going to now figure out which roads don't have blood on it and then not drive my car on those roads? Technology in the glue, there's animal products in the glue for laptops and stuff like this. There's animal products everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's some things that's really, really hard to avoid, but it's about avoiding what we can.
What you can, yeah.
Which is a lot, which is most animal exploitation.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I love that you mentioned it. Can I just expand on that a little bit? Because this is huge. And this is, when it comes to veganism being a word, like people are like, ugh, don't want to do that. Like, don't talk to me if you're a vegan, because, you're going to shove some things down my throat and tell me to do all these things. And while there is a sect of activists doing that, it's not only that. Sometimes it's just like any other things when you're pushed and you get into the state where you want to fight back because you are so in this state of wanting to help that you get to that point. But that is not what veganism is about. It is about sharing compassion for animals and trying our best to get the world to see that. Yeah. And I love how you said that it's about trying to reduce it, because for me, becoming a vegan is a journey. And a lot of the time people see being a vegan as this word of this massive club that if you're not perfect, you're out of the club. Like if you're a vegan and you have a leather belt that you've had for 30 years, then you can't be a vegan because other vegans will judge you. And this was always this hard thing. People are like, oh, I could never be a vegan, because you think that there's all these rules and this it's this elite club of people that are so perfect and they're doing everything right.
People's perceptions. Yeah.
And it's not that.
It's incredible.
It's such an incredible thing to try and get to understand that that's not what veganism is. And it's not when you label yourself a vegan, it doesn't mean that you're now perfect and doing absolutely everything right. It means that you're trying to be more compassionate. And trying to find a different way. You're actively trying to find a different way that is more compassionate towards animals.
Exactly.
So it's a journey.
There are those labels, there are those stereotypes, and you're either supporting animal exploitation or you're a vegan. There's no in between. Like, because someone who lives in an area where they have to hunt in order to survive, have to kill animals in order to survive, they're doing that out of necessity. They're killing animals because they have to. We don't have to, especially anyone watching this Zoom call, this replay right now. If you're sitting here watching this through a laptop, there's bound to be a supermarket around you somewhere, and you have money
PC.
and choice, right? So there's that necessity that comes into it, and it's about not supporting animal exploitation, which is easier than people realize. And people don't want animal cruelty to be happening. They don't want animals to be exploited, but they don't really question these things. And it's not about, as I said, not about zero footprint, zero impact. I know in growing plant-based crops that there is an impact on the environment with water use, with land use. You know, in the plant-based crops, there's insects and rodents that are going to die that are part of that harvesting process, right? I take full accountability for that. I know that happens. There's not as if there's no blood on my hands, right? But if there's animals that are being killed as a result, indirectly, of farming plants, there's a big difference there than paying someone to put a knife through an animal's throat, to cut them up, to put them on your plate, right? So there's a huge difference in terms of the environmental footprint. And it's like the least we can do for the animals and for the planet and for our health as well, you know? You mentioned, you know, that the idea that people have, or the vegans are trying to force their beliefs on people. Let me just reframe this for everyone. So there's sort of, on a deep systemic level, our society and our culture has been influenced by anthropocentric, which means human-centered beliefs and principles and philosophies, which see humans as the center of the universe, more superior to every other being, and at the top of this hierarchy, right? It's human-centeredness. Now, I've been advocating for a number of years for the opposite of that, for earth-centeredness, for ecocentrism, which is,
I was going to ask you about that
whole connectivity, right? So through that anthropocentric belief, there's a belief there that this animal is less important than my taste buds. So the life of this animal is less important than my taste buds. For 10 minutes of palate pleasure, it's enough for me to pay someone to kill an animal to eat them. So people are forcing their beliefs, imposing their beliefs that the life of another being, that the life of another creature is not as important as theirs, as a humans, that their right to life is less important than my taste buds or than my culture. So there is this forcing their beliefs onto animals. It's actually the complete opposite. It's not a vegan saying, you know, to force our beliefs onto people. Who's making money from vegan activism? Other than, like, we're out there speaking up for the animals, advocating for veganism, not because we get a massive benefit from it. We're not vegan for ourselves, like, generally speaking. It's because we can think outside of ourselves, think about the planet, think about the animals. Yes, there's massive benefits for us in terms of a plant-based diet. We can freaking thrive. My last blood tests were all amazing. 5 years vegan. Like, come on. So there's that forcing of our opinions onto animals. And through eating animals, we're forcing our beliefs onto them, and it's at the cost of their life. So it's about reframing things. And I would love to encourage people to question their beliefs, to question their values. And, you know, is it the vegans that are forcing their beliefs on you, or are we getting people to question and challenge what they thought was normal and necessary, and delving into it in a deeper way? Like, but because people get triggered, because people their diet and culture is so connected with their identity, right? I've been there. I know what it's like. That if someone comes along and challenges that, we're very quick to react. So it's like, you shouldn't force this on me. And it's a defense mechanism. It's like, even if someone was forcing, like, literally holding you down, saying, fucking, you're going to be vegan. I'm not going to let you out of this cage until you become vegan. still exploiting and killing animals is unnecessary and wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Lucky we're not doing that to people.
I love that you said that it's just their triggers, because I mean, this show, We Are Wildfire podcast, is all about this leveling up as humans and awakening to this stuff. And for me, a trigger is just a call to action. Like, why are you being triggered? Like, if this didn't trigger you, then you'd be able to walk away and be like, okay, cool, it's fine. But it's triggering you for a reason. Your emotions are calls to action. So if you're feeling offended by seeing some truth or hearing about the truth that's going on in the world, and this flows over to any issues going in the world, if you're feeling triggered about it, that's you needing to question your beliefs and your values around that, because why is it triggering you?
Lean into that resistance, figure out why is it. Yeah, because
exactly. I mean, that's what we're so used to doing. We're so used to getting triggered and then expressing the anger, and then it dissipates and we move on, or we carry it with us, whatever it does. But nobody is used to, unless you started on a spiritual or personal development journey, no one's used to unpacking why they're being triggered. And when you start to do that, you become so much more self-aware of who you are as a person, which is not your identity. Like, you've got your identity, and then you've got the who you are at your core. And this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, being a child and being compassionate and kind and being conditioned to be all these other things. So over our lifetime, we've packed all these other beliefs, and we've decided on these things of who we are as an identity. But if we start to unlayer that and unpack that, we come back to, we are compassionate and kind and full of love. And when you get back to that person doesn't want to hurt the animals, and they want to save the planet. We are all one, people.
You articulated that so well, Nicole, with the triggers and with that self-awareness. And like, I've recently done some training through Love Out Loud, which are facilitating the world's largest love-based movement. Go check out the work that Love Out Loud are doing. It's really, really powerful. And I started to delve into understanding my triggers, how to lean into it, and what that means for me. It's just to show me something about myself, and then I can understand more about myself and get some integrity and alignment and speak my truth, in response to that. But never have I seen so many triggers come up as people have with veganism and animal rights. I wouldn't say if I was anti-vegan, but I was very I had all the justifications and excuses under the sun, like just everything, every possible reason to not be kind to animals. Like,
I saw a post on was it Instagram the other day that says, it said, if you replace being kind to animals, it like
replace veganism with being kind to animals. Stop trying to force me to be kind to animals. I don't want to be kind to animals. I'll only be kind to animals on Monday.
I love that. I was like, it makes you think, and all these things just make you think. They're different perspectives, and it's awesome. I mean, I've got a question that I've got from one of the public that I have to read to you, because there's some real deeper questions that we can speak about here. So, but guys, this is a platform to really get deep on these hectic topics, because that's what we're all about. Like, we need to stop sleeping and awaken to the truth of what is going on in the world. We're so conditioned to be ignorant to what's going on. And I always say that in this time where information is so readily available to us, like, yes, be aware of that there's so many conflicting ideas, but go do your own research and then stand by what you believe. And when that changes, and when you figure out something else to be true, like you said in the beginning, shift and change and do it, but don't hide. It's not easy. No, it's so hard.
But do it.
It takes a shitload of courage. But you just have to be brave enough to stand by what you believe. And this whole journey for me, in the beginning, having these conversations with family members around like a dinner table and stuff, and I always used to, at first I used to be like, oh, someone asked me why you're vegan. And I would be like, all the reasons: environment, my health, and because I want to be kind to animals. And I used to just be like that was the end of the discussion, because I didn't want to get into the conversation. And over time I was like, nope, all right, I'm not going to force these things on anybody. But someone asks me why I'm vegan, I'm going to open up that discussion. I will tell them. And when they ask me more, I will answer more. And if they ask me something that I don't know, I'm going to be like, that's a good point. I don't know, but this is the way I want to live my life. And you're welcome to do some research into it and see if it aligns with you. But I don't have all the answers. This is just what resonates with me.
Yeah, and that's one, like that approach resonates for a lot of people. It's just like, I'm here, I'm doing me. I'm not going to encroach. I'm not going to impose. There's so much going on inside my mind and heart right now, but I'm just going to be quiet. I wish you freaking knew what was going on. You're still contributing to this.
Yeah, exactly. And my mom was oh my gosh, stop this conversation, because, she doesn't like conflict and stuff. And I said to her, this is not conflict. This is discussion. We're so conditioned to not have big discussions about religion and spirituality and race and veganism and all these big discussions that actually have an energetic charge to them, because people feel like we're attacking your identity and we're attacking who you are as a person. Who was it that said it? I think it was Einstein or someone, that like the mark of intelligence is having a discussion and sharing ideas with other people without taking them on as your own. Like, we can talk about stuff without adopting.
Hey, Einstein, vegan, by the way.
Was he? Woo!
Vegan veggie. Like back in the day when the term vegan hadn't been developed, he wasn't supporting animal exploitation. He was like,
nope.
Yeah,
because he was the energy guy as well. Hey, so yep. So let me ask you some of these questions, because this is a big one, and I think we kind of spoke about this a little bit, but I wanted to delve into it a little bit. So the first one is, can veganism sustain the exponentially growing human population sustainably?
Yeah.
And how do you promote or encourage the movement towards veganism, considering that poverty-stricken areas have very little concept or care for the environment when it comes to their survival, compounded by the fact that meat can be very cheap and in some countries provide a nutritious meal to families?
Yeah. So there's a number of components to that question.
Yeah.
So is it sustainable? Like, it's the best we can do. It's really the best we can do right now. So in order to feed someone, so if you're comparing like someone who is on a heavy omnivorous diet, lots of meat, eggs, and dairy, compared to a whole foods, plant-based vegan diet, it takes 18 times more land to grow the animal-based products than it does for a whole foods, plant-based diet. You're talking about a 13th of the water used to grow, plant-based food. So a fraction of the land, a fraction of the water, you're reducing your greenhouse gas emissions by about 50%, right? Massive. There's less violence, there's less animals being killed. So it is literally the only long-term and the best systems that we have now is plant-based veganic agriculture. That is going to sustain the population, because it's reducing the resources. We can start regenerating and rehabilitating some of the farmland, which was at one point beautiful forest that's all been cleared down and lost biodiversity. Like if we were to look at like free range organic farming, for example, you still need, if you're looking at grass-fed cows, right, or beef. Another thing we'll talk about, euphemisms. It's cow flesh. It's not beef. It's pig flesh. It's not pork. Call it for what it is. We need more land if everyone wanted to eat free, like grass-fed cows. So much more land, because over like, I think it's high 90% of all the animals that are being farmed are factory farmed, not grass-fed, not free range. Like, so take whatever city, in terms of another alternative. So plant-based veganic farming, the best way to minimize our footprint, to reduce our emissions, land use, water use, so much. It's still going to have a footprint, but it's much smaller than an omnivorous diet and animal-based products, right? There's a study conducted a few years ago, the biggest study into agricultural food systems in the world, done by Oxford University. And they surveyed, I think, over 45,000 farms and food production systems in the world, from small scale organic cow farming all the way to intensive animal agriculture, everything in between, plant-based farming, small scale, big scale, like everything. And their conclusion was clearly the single biggest way to minimize your footprint is to adopt a plant-based vegan diet, right? So it is the only sustainable thing, because if we were to look at, say, okay, well then can we maybe look at everyone just hunting and gathering their own food? Is that going to be sustainable? If whatever city, whatever village, whatever town you live in right now, imagine if everyone in your city or town, wherever you are, wanted to eat meat, and the only way they could do that was for people to go out into the bush, out into the forest, to kill and eat their own animals, to eat them, right? I know here on the Gold Coast, there's hundreds of thousands of people. If you were to tell everyone, go out west to kill all the kangaroos, all the koalas, all the goannas, all the birds to eat meat, there's no way we can sustain how much meat people are consuming through hunting and gathering, right? If we go back 200 years, there's a term called zoomass. And what zoomass is, it's like the amount of living life, the amount of like animals essentially. Yeah. So the zoomass 200 years ago consisted of 99% of the zoomass was wild animals. And 1% of the zoomass was humans and their domesticated animals. Right? So 99%, 1%. Obviously, the population of humans has increased a lot since then. But now, wild zoomass is 2%, and the 98% is humans and their domesticated farmed animals. Wow. We have shifted the balance and harmony on our planet in the most destructive way.
Oh, I felt that. That's huge. That's the opposite. Not even like, oh, now it's 50-50.
No. So, and there's 7 odd billion humans, 70 billion land animals, right? So like we're shifting things so much. So how can we sustain, for example, hunting and gathering? If we take that 2% of remaining wild zoomass, how do we get all the 90% out of the remaining 2% to get meat? It's impossible. So that's not possible. So we need to look at different ways to do things. And in terms of the price of vegan plant-based products, meat is expensive. You go to any shop, like, and so what's more expensive, the rice, the beans, the grains, the fruit, or the meat and the dairy products? Like,
I think this is another question that someone else wrote about, because it's they were saying that they also want to be vegan, but it is expensive. And I think what they might be talking about is all these new pretty vegan products that are coming out. So you don't have to do all the new fancy vegan labeled products. Like you can just go straight to the veggies, guys. Basics, in the veggie aisle,
the fruits, the veggies, the nuts, the grains, the legumes, like the potatoes. All this stuff is like some of the cheapest foods out there. And you look at cultures around the world, like they don't have the money to be able to sustain just eating meat, eggs, and dairy and all these products. It's the West that has the money, that has the affluence, that is able to purchase these products. And typically, like the smaller villages and communities, they were mainly vegan anyway. Like, unless they needed to eat animal products, they were just eating plant-based foods. And if they did find animals, they were eating them. You know? So I think it's a real big misconception that eating and living a plant-based lifestyle is more expensive. It's the opposite. And I can vouch for that because I've been a meat eater. I was eating meat, eggs, and dairy every single day for 23 years. And I can tell you it's not more expensive. If you want to eat for example, the vegan yogurts and the vegan mock meats and the vegan cheeses,
all of the Beyond
some
Burgers,
of them,
the Beyond Burger.
They're not cheap, but because there's so many subsidies for animal products, the governments are maintaining these systems of exploitation and subsidizing animal agriculture, and the costs are externalized. Right. So animal products are so much cheaper than they would be if you took into account the impact on human health, the impact on the environment, the impact on the animals. So when governments
what is the real cost?
Where is the real cost? So no, it's much cheaper than people realize. And for me, realizing I was vegan and making that step was the best decision of my life. And my only regret is that I didn't realize that I was vegan earlier, that I didn't go vegan earlier. But that's the conditioning, that's the society, the education that I was having. That's how I was brought up. So I just didn't realize, but an absolute joy and not a sacrifice in any way. And talking about the family stuff, like when you're sitting around and advocating and chatting with friends and family can be one of the most difficult things. It's so sensitive. There's relationships, wanting to tread on each other's feet, and it's difficult to handle. And I know that I've seen some differences with South African culture when I was living over there with Kate, and when I've been in Australia with my family, and there are some differences. And how do you have those discussions? That can be super tricky. Keep things simple, keep things basic. Like, people don't like animal cruelty. People wouldn't, if they wanted to eat meat, if you bought a baby lamb and put it on the table and said, okay, you guys want to have lamb for dinner, take a knife, slit this baby's throat and eat it. People wouldn't. No. There is disconnection. It's, we're paying someone in the slaughterhouse to do that. We're responsible for that death. We're responsible for that loss of life as consumers. Whatever we purchase, we've got to take responsibility for everything in that chain. Just like in a mobile phone, there's 70 odd different elements that go into a smartphone, ripped up from a hole in the earth somewhere around the planet. I'm accountable for that, and I choose to purchase these products realizing that things can be fucking hectic. But avoiding animal products and not supporting animal exploitation is fairly easier to do than giving up your phone and not driving on roads and all of that. So
I want to touch on that as well, because the first thing that I want to say, I want to talk about, because someone asked about how you actually have these conversations with your family, because and so I love that you spoke about that now. And I think the main thing, guys, is first of all, change is uncomfortable. It's fucking uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing as having this conversation about, it's a speciesism thing. Like, you can have this conversation about animals. You should be able to have these conversations about racism in your house as well. Like, you need to have the courage to stand up for what you believe, whether it's in your own household or in the public or anything like that. You need to stand up for what you believe. And you don't have to have this massive fight again with your family members. It's a discussion. It's about helping people become aware of different perspectives. And again, you're not forcing anyone to to change their beliefs and take on your beliefs. But if they ask or they say anything, don't be afraid to open up that discussion and tell them what you believe and stand by it. Because that is the biggest change. It's not going to be comfortable, but we need to
example. Have the uncomfortable conversations. And with anything, just, it's super tricky with animal rights and veganism. It's one of the most difficult things I found to discuss with people. Now, like, I'm much more forward. I'm more confident. I've got the facts. I've got the knowledge, the understanding, and every day I'm learning more and more and more how to communicate and how to advocate, right? And I can have the conversations with someone in their 80s. I can have a conversation with a young kid and everyone in between, and that's connect to the level where they're at, to be able to relate to people, share your stories. And that's something that's so powerful, is that storytelling. Hey, if I'm chatting to a fisherman, I used to be a fisherman. I used to do this. I used to be part of this, but then I realized, hey, this is what I'm
Mm,
contributing to. I don't want to support that anymore. When it comes to family stuff, like call
yeah.
out things for what they are. This is an animal that's been killed here that, why? For our
Mm,
culture, for our taste buds, for our convenience. Like
yeah.
some of those
And watch how
basics.
change happens. Like, just give it time. Like, no one's ever going to change something in a week or whatever, but
They
you'll,
do sometimes though.
they do. Yeah. But if
Like a
you,
lot
like,
of people
even just
do
in my family,
anything.
it has been a beautiful thing, a beautiful shift with me going vegan, and a couple of other people in my family going maybe not vegan, but like flexitarian, and just choosing to not eat as much meat, and starting that journey of deciding that this is not okay, or we're choosing because of sustainability and animal cruelty and health and all the different reasons.
Yeah.
And you can see the shift in, and guys, it's a beautiful thing. Like, if you're scared about this as well, like I have friends that invited us over for a braai barbecue in New Zealand, in Australia, braai in South Africa, that invited us over for a braai, and they decided, okay, cool. Well, they weren't vegan, so there was one vegan, hashtag me, are going to be at this braai, and these people, beautiful people, decided to let's do a vegan braai. Like, it was going to be at their house. They chose to do a vegan braai. I mean, like, that is an oxymoron if you didn't hear one before, but it was amazing, and we had so much fun. And I just knew there are people in the world that are open to helping, and you're not everybody is going to be like, oh, veganism, oh, so you're going to find the other people that are welcoming of it, even if they don't take it on themselves. They're welcoming, and they're so believe that is possible.
Yeah,
I wanted to
exactly.
touch on as well, Scott, you mentioned as well, when we're talking, I feel like I've got a hair in my mouth. It's beautiful. So you spoke about just before in the previous question as well, being sustainable with the West versus poorer communities. And yeah, I wanted to touch on this as well, because I think you mentioned as well that the West is the problem. So this is us having this conversation on a laptop with a podcast, and being all hashtag woke and stuff. We are the people that can make the change. Like, we're not asking people in decimated communities that don't have access to this knowledge as well to make these changes just yet. I mean, there will be a shift at some point when the balance shifts over, but right now it's about making that shift within the Western world. And
that's where we are. And like it's people around the world that are understanding more about veganism, understanding more about animal rights and the links between our choices of food and the impact that it has on the environment, on their health and the animals. And there's like where the Australia, the States, I don't know about New Zealand, the UK, like some of the biggest consumption of animal products, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time, we're clearing land, destroying habitat, clearing land, deforestation in Australia to grow grass, right? 56% of Australia's total land is used for grazing. 56%, more than half of our country, right? So think about the loss of biodiversity in forest and all of that. In other countries in the world, they're clearing, like the Amazon, for example, clearing out rainforest to grow monoculture soy, right? And clearing other areas to grow to where the animals are going to be. And most of the world's monocrops is actually food for animals in the livestock sector. It's like 70 or 80% or something. It's massive. Do the research. I forgot the reference, but it's like 3/4 of all the soy grown around the world is actually for livestock, and a very small percent is for human consumption, right? So this is happening in less developed areas where they're growing plant-based food that humans could be eating, but instead, no, we ship it, send it overseas to feed animals, where we're putting in more protein and calories than we're getting out of these animals in terms of edible animal flesh. That's a very inefficient system. there's enough in terms of those, less developed countries and societies that are struck by like poverty and all this sort of stuff and not enough food.
Yeah.
There's
You're
enough
getting
food
excited.
in the
I
world.
I can tell
There's
you're getting
enough
excited.
food in the world to feed everyone and end world hunger. It's just we're giving that food to 70 billion animals in the animal farming sector, plant-based food that humans could be consuming given to animals. Like the myth of scarcity of food in the world is bullshit. There's enough food. So going vegan, looking at our consumption,
to get the waste more fat.
Right.
Yeah.
And is beneficial for human rights issues as well.
Yeah.
Because getting people out of slaughterhouses, giving farmers, like there's so many elements to this. And, our footprint, my footprint as an Australian is through the roof compared to so many other countries, largely because of our diet and the way we're living and what we've got. So yes, we have a lot of responsibility, but it's up to everyone. We can't just say, oh, well, only the West needs to, cut their consumption. Everyone needs to. It's global health. It's one Earth community. So we can't necessarily make exceptions unless those exceptions are based off necessity, where, okay, these people don't have access to plant-based farming because they're living in the Arctic and they actually need to kill some seals, for example. Yeah. Different story. It's unfortunate for the animals, but people got to do what they need to do to survive.
Yeah.
And we don't need to eat animals to survive.
Yeah, you can't say survival of the fittest when it comes to the West. Like you've got other options. It's not.
No, we've got
like,
supermarkets.
Yeah.
And it's not the circle of life eating animals. That's a circle of death and violence and suffering.
Yeah. So I want to lead that on to the second question that I think is very relevant with what we're discussing now. So it's a brilliant question as well. So it says, in my understanding, the movement towards veganism or plant-based diets is based around two thought processes that are not necessarily mutually exclusive. So the first thought is, the first being animal cruelty and the second being climate crisis. So do you think that the focus of the movement should be weighted more in favor of the climate crisis rather than animal cruelty? With the thought being that while they both achieve the same goal and help in a sense, masses changing their diet for animal cruelty reasons alone will create greater need for imported food, which obviously is less nutritious and will not provide the most efficient goal towards combating the climate crisis. Whereas masses changing their diets for climatic reasons will not only combat animal cruelty, but will more likely try find locally sourced food. And so, for lack of a better term, kill two birds with one stone.
Wow, what a wonderful question.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to do, there's like a dichotomy that's been created, and the person's making an assumption that, well, if they go vegan for animal cruelty reasons, then there's going to be more imported food and that's not necessarily good. But if they go vegan for climate change, then it's going to be different.
Yeah.
We can't draw that conclusion at all. That's not the premise of that, I think, needs to be questioned. But what I think is really, really important and such a wonderful point for discussion is the drivers, what's motivating people to go vegan. And the person has touched upon the benefits and the importance for the climate crisis to adopt a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
The benefit and importance of, going vegan for the animal cruelty and exploitation side of things. And the wonderful thing with veganism is that if someone realizes that they hold vegan beliefs and they decide to act in alignment with that, a crucial aspect of that lifestyle and philosophy is to not eat animal products. Now, there's three main categories, main drivers of people that they use to justify, okay, well, I'm going vegan for the animals, for the moral and ethics side of things. I'm going vegan for my health as an individual. I'm going vegan for the environment. So you can look at moral and ethics, the health, sort of human health, and then the environmental health, right? So I went vegan for the environmental footprint. I wanted to reduce my environmental footprint. I didn't care much about the health of plant-based diet, And the animal side of things, I cared a little bit, but it wasn't my main driver. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter what someone's driver is to go vegan. Once you're living in a vegan way, it's going to have a positive effect on the animals, on your health, and on the environment. So it'd be addressing climate change, addressing, at least not supporting industries that exploit animals, not supporting animal cruelty, and nourishing your body with healthy, nutritious, plant-based foods that some of the biggest, strongest animals on our planet eat, like rhinos, elephants, gorillas. These oaks are like shredded. They are solid animals. They're vegans, man. Like they just eat plants. They got no issue with protein and getting their nourishment, right?
I think there was the strongest man in the world. I can't remember his name now, but someone asked him, like, you're as strong as an ox. How how can you only, is it Patrick?
Baboon, I don't know how to say it. So he was Mr. Universe or something, or strongest man.
Yeah, he's literally like, and he is as strong as an ox. And the people were like, how did you get as strong as an ox being vegan? And he was like, well, have you ever seen an ox eat meat? Like, he only eats plants.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's such a great question. Way to put it. It's such a good, hey. Getting back to that question, like the person sort of wondering, how do we frame things to get the most impact? How do we get most people on board to expand this movement and this space and to address the climate crisis and all of this? It doesn't matter what people's drivers are. Like on that individual level, we've got to be able to connect with people to figure out what's important to them. If it is the health, if it's people who are interested in healthy eating and want to lose weight and want to become healthier and fitness and all of that, well, give them the facts and the medical research. Eating meat, eggs, and dairy is like, that's the leading driver of human death, right?
Yeah.
Is atherosclerosis, heart disease, coming from blocked arteries, eating cholesterol and saturated fat. And we can reverse heart disease. This is not a statement. This is not a wild claim. Read the research. You can reverse and prevent heart disease in so many cases through eating a plant-based whole foods diet. So if we can shift the biggest killer of humans by shifting our diet, well, that's a big threat to the pharmaceutical industry. That's a big threat to the animal agriculture industry. That threatens a lot. So these are some of the reasons why things are so suppressed. But before I delve into a rabbit hole, it doesn't matter why people want to go vegan. The thing is, once they're there, it has a positive flow and effect in so many reasons for so many instances. And
I want to touch on that as well, because I think when it comes to sustainability, because this talk, like we said in the beginning, is not only about being vegan because of animal cruelty, but in a big way because of what the UN said and how being plant-based is literally going to help the planet survive. Like, it's the biggest thing we can do. So I think what he might be saying is that, if we saying, save the animals, but then people are like, okay, cool, I'm going to be vegan to save the animals, but then I'm still going to be purchasing all this crap that's produced, that's not actually saving the planet, that we're now still contributing to waste and plastic, and we're not aware of those things. So I think the biggest thing that people can do is first start on the journey, like you said, in any way possible. Like, really speak to what speaks to your soul, whether it's animal cruelty or sustainability or health. That's going to begin you on this journey. And then when you start on this journey, don't just stop there. Like, do the research into it and really get into it, and it'll open you up to everything. And guys, there's a lot of people that start on journeys like this, and at the end of the day, we're all human and we have to begin somewhere. But my point is that don't just stop there and be like, okay, I'm doing the best I can. Like, try harder and do more.
Continue to evolve and grow and expand. And
exactly.
It's tricky at times, but it's so rewarding and lovely.
Exactly. So if you're doing it,
and go plastic free. Be vegan and not support processed foods. Like,
like, you can do two things at once.
Vegan food that's shit. That's not healthy for you. That is processed. Don't eat it. That doesn't mean you can't be vegan because, oh, well, there's some aspects of veganism that isn't good. Then don't support that as well.
Exactly. You can be an unhealthy vegan.
Yeah.
Hashtag Oreos.
You can eat, yeah, they're delicious. But damn, they got palm oil in them, bro. Like,
yeah, like you have to, it opens up, like this is why, I mean, I said, you know, stay tuned for more, because this is a conversation that I like. That's why I had all my glasses of water and my tea and everything, and I got like real settled in here, because this is literally, like you said, it's going down a rabbit hole that we need to open up and talk about. So once you get into it, it spiders out into this mass of information that you can get into and become aware of, so that you can make changes. Yeah. So instead of just going like, and if you are just taking on a label and being like greenwashed and saying, great, I am now an animal lover and I'm going vegan for those reasons, and then you stop there and you put your blinkers on to absolutely everything else that's going on in the world, you're not helping the situation. So if you're putting your blinkers on and going, save the animals, but you're not trying to save the planet, the animals are going to die, guys.
Yeah.
Like, we're all going to die. So you need to open up your...
There's an absolute imperative. And this is one of the main drives of it, why I became so passionate for advocating for veganism and the plant-based diet, was from that environmental perspective. That's something that I've really tried to focus on as a scientist, as someone who can say, hey, these are the facts, this is what we need to reach a particular audience, right? So it's crucial for this space. Now, often what I hear within the animal rights vegan community, a lot of people will say veganism, it's just about the animals and that's it. And I understand where they're coming from, because at its core, it's about not supporting animal exploitation, right? But because it's so applicable and it's so relevant for so many other areas in the world, we need to diversify our thought process, look at the systems, look at the bigger shifts, to realize the role that it plays. And I think, you know, that reconnection to our core beliefs, and then realigning our actions to be in alignment with those core beliefs of compassion, love, and respect, and going vegan throughout that process, like, that's super powerful in us and the world around us. And it's not just about the animals. It is so much broader. It's the expansion of human consciousness. What else? What other mode of being on this world can we embody that has a smaller environmental footprint, stands up against injustice and abuse of other beings, is beneficial for our health, like just shares love as often as possible for all life? Like, it's so crucial. It's so crucial. Can I bring us to a couple of points here that I wanted to raise?
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know how much time we're going to have, but so I do not, for a long time, in tailoring my approach to activism and advocacy, I would at the start be like, yeah, just reduce what you're eating and that's good enough and that's amazing. I don't hold that belief anymore at all. I do not advocate for people to reduce their consumption of animal products, because I was vegetarian. I was vegetarian, and I thought that being vegetarian was the solution. I was like, if I choose to not eat, if I do meat-free Monday, that's one day of the week where I'm not eating meat. So I feel good about contributing to the most destructive industry on the planet. I feel better that I'm, you know, not supporting animal exploitation on this one day, but it just masks all my other shit. Like, why go, why not 4 days? Why not 5 days? Why not every day of the week? You know, we don't say, well, okay, we don't want to support human slavery, right? We don't go, oh,
but not on Saturdays.
Just not on Saturdays or Sundays. No, that's fine. We'll just regulate human slavery, and you know, the weekend it's fine. Or with child abuse, we don't say, oh no, let's reduce your child abuse to 3 days a week. It's wrong. It's immoral. It's abusing and denying the rights of another being. With racism, we don't say, oh, just be less racist.
Only on Monday and Tuesday.
Only these days. No. It's an injustice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's denying the rights of another being. So apply any other filter to it. Why is it that when we have this approach, it's like, well, no, just reduce your consumption. If it's for the animals, there's still animals that are being killed and exploited, if it's for your environmental footprint, going vegan is the best thing you can do for your environmental footprint. And if it's for your health, getting rid of dairy and eggs out of your diet is super beneficial. Like there's a massive distinction between vegetarianism and veganism. Vegetarianism is almost aligned completely with an omnivorous diet. Veganism's so far so separate. A vegetarian is choosing to not consume animal flesh, right? That's one aspect of animal exploitation. It's one product, right? Still supporting eggs, still supporting the dairy industry, which are filled with violence, which are filled with exploitation. Like for the animal side, if you purchase eggs, whether they're cage-free, cage eggs, whatever it is, the baby male chickens are a byproduct in the egg industry because they don't produce eggs. So the standard legal RSPCA approved humane way to dispose of wastage is to blend baby male chickens alive on their first day of being born into this planet. They grind them up and alive in a big machine called a macerator. That's standard industry practice. That's considered humane by our human-centered beliefs.
I just want to stop you there and tell you as well, like literally maybe an hour before this podcast, I said to my husband, because I still eat eggs as well. And I said to him, I've been like going back and forth, like hardcore vegan / I'm a vegan that eats eggs / and all this kind of stuff. And I said to him, I said, babe, I'm gonna stop eating eggs again. I'm pretty sure of it. And he was like, but what? And I was like, well, because I went backwards, and I've been now doing all this research again to get on to have this conversation with Scott. And I was like, and I guarantee you by the end of this conversation with Scott, I'm not going to be eating eggs again. And he was like, So guys, I want to tell you that me sitting here hearing this, eating eggs, like it's triggering. It's hard to hear. It's hard to listen to. And there's a part of you that wants to defend it and do all these things, but listen with an open ear and an open heart and listen to, this is the truth. And while it's really hard to hear and it's uncomfortable, like you get to decide what you do with the truth. And almost 99% of the time, like at the end of this, like you can't unhear the truth. You just choose to do it in spite of the truth. And this is what I've been doing. I went back to eating eggs after knowing this truth and choosing to ignore it. And that's what we all do for everything. Like we are not unaware of this stuff happening. We choose to ignore it. We choose to turn a blind eye.
Exactly.
So while it's really hard to hear, now walking away from listening to this podcast, I mean, I guarantee you, a lot of people walked away in the first 10 minutes or 5 seconds, or reading the bio of it, they walked away from it. But we have a choice on this planet to be aware of the truth that is going on in all aspects of life. And
so much of this is hidden.
It's
Nicole,
so hidden.
like people don't realize baby male chickens are being fucking blended up alive, and that's industry practice. They don't realize that the mother cows in the dairy industry only produce milk after they've been forcibly impregnated. Right, to fall pregnant, to give birth to a cow, to give birth to a baby. And if it's a female, they keep her in the same cycle of exploiting the female reproductive system. If it's a baby boy, they kill the baby boy within his first few days of coming to this planet. The standard industry practice, humane treatment for killing wastage in the dairy industry, right, is through blunt force trauma in Queensland and in Australia. So they can kill baby cows with a sledgehammer, and that's legal. That's upheld by our legal system, and that's standard industry practice. So when we purchase ice cream from the supermarket, realize there is blood and exploitation that has happened to get that product on that shelf. Make the connection with what's happening further down the line, because it's sure as fucking, they're not going to sell their products if the truth was on the label.
Right?
Like
smoking, hey? Like smoking causes cancer on the label. Like let's put all the truth on the labels of all these products and see what happens.
The truth needs to be there. And with meat, people know they're eating an animal, like most of the time. But with eggs and dairy, there's There's more suffering in the dairy industry than in the meat industry, because at the end of the day, the mother cows, after being forcibly impregnated, having their babies stolen from them, 4 or 5 years of being forcibly impregnated, infections, they end up in the same slaughterhouse with a knife across their throat. So they live like a whole life of torture and suffering. And that's to get ice cream, and to get milk. Like, go to the supermarket, instead of getting the cow's milk, just be like, soy milk, almond milk, hazelnut milk, coconut milk,
oat
milk, macadamia milk, like every possible milk that's better for the animals, better for your health, better for the environment, and realize these small shifts make a massive difference.
Or no milk, guys. It's so easy. Like, my husband doesn't drink cow's milk anymore. Well, 99% of the time, but he chooses, like, he doesn't like, you go, I don't like oat milk, I don't like almond milk, or whatever. That's okay. Do you know how good a coffee tastes with no milk? Like, all you need is that little bit of time to shift your taste buds. When you do it, when I first did oat milk, I was like, oh my God, I can't actually finish this coffee. I had it out. I was like, and I was all smart, and I was like, can I please have an oat milk cappuccino, and not oat milk, almond milk cappuccino? And I sat down, and I was all like, I got my book out, and I was like, all like, schmancy, and I like sat there, and I tasted my almond milk cappuccino, and I was like, oh, this is so bad. And I was like, this is so terrible.
Some brands aren't good.
You have to test the
milk
brand.
And coconut milk in my shakes, right? Or soy milk in a tea, but not like almond milk. For some of them, they get really watery.
Yeah, it's terrible. But it takes time, guys. You have to give these things time. Yeah, and that taste bud thing as well. Like, you need at least 2 weeks of not having cow's milk. Cow's milk is super sweet, and you need at least 2 weeks to get out of that taste buds. Like, you're used to those taste buds, and then start trying the other milk.
Wean yourself off. Stop breastfeeding at 30 years of age. Exactly. Like, if you had to suck the udders of the cow yourself, you probably wouldn't be doing it, but that's pretty much what you're doing. Like, why don't we drink dog's milk? Why don't we drink cat's milk? Because we've been conditioned to think that cow's milk is more necessary, but dog's milk, think about drinking dog's milk. Is anyone like dry retching? Are they like, conditioning? It's your perception. It's only your perception that makes that different. It's only your perception that sees some animals as inferior and not as valuable and less important. So reprogram yourself, reconnect to your core beliefs, and start seeing things through a lens of truth when it comes to our relationship with animals and this planet. You can choose to not support animal exploitation. That's what veganism is about. You're either supporting animal exploitation or you're not.
So if you want to try something else,
animal exploitation, don't reduce your contribution to one of the biggest injustices on our planet. There's more animals that are being killed each year, like 70 billion. This has been going on for like ages. Like, come on. So there's lots of people like are in these different sects of like animal cruelty, and then there's the environmentalists, and then there's people that want to do it for their health. So I think again, when you enter these different sects, then it's going to expand outwards into everything else. So often what happens with like being vegan is mostly centered around the animal cruelty side of things, but it goes outward into everything else. Being plant-based is a euphemism for being vegan, but it's more focused on climate change. And so it's because veganism has got that a little bit of charge around it. A lot of people say they're plant-based. That doesn't mean they're vegan. Well, they still can eat animal products. So a lot of people like to use the word plant-based to beat around the bush and not say the V word because it's going to trigger people.
It triggers people.
It. Veganism. Be kind to animals. Be kind to animals.
And it's about going deeper in it. Like, again, I say this is a journey, guys, because a lot of people when they've awakened to the truth, a lot of people do, just because we were going to talk about behavior change as well. I don't know if we've got enough time for that, but a lot of people, when they awaken to the truth, they just click and they flip into this. But a lot of the time people don't do that. So they go through these little stages of awakening.
Yeah.
and they do the plant-based diet. And like, I know another question was people asking about like, should there be a strict mechanism to combat the climate crisis, or do you think that any sustainable resources, including meat, should be utilized depending on the location in which people live? If yes, why would it be an issue to eat any food that is coming from sustainable source? For example, like eggs coming from home-kept chickens, and venison coming from correctly managed nature reserves, since these nature reserves maintain a higher natural biodiversity than any farmland or monoculture. And since animals' numbers need to be maintained to prevent the results from animals reaching their carrying capacity, which evidently results in changes throughout the trophic levels. So that was a bit sciencey for me, even.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things...
Animal farming is disrupting global ecology.
Yeah.
Like, we're fucking with nature. Farming animals is really disruptive to trophic ecology, to these interactions in the ecosystems. And things have a varying footprint for sure.
But the best way
even
is
if
to
it
go
was
vegan.
environmentally sustainable, you're still abusing and killing someone for your food. So there's so many different lenses to look at these things through. Like, take the backyard chickens, for example, and eggs. While we're still, you know, you can have backyard chickens. You're exploiting a chicken. You're taking something from them. You have chickens because you want to take something from them, right? Are the chickens being harmed? No, that doesn't mean they're not being exploited. You can still exploit someone and not harm them, right? From a health perspective, from like another perspective, it's like eating chicken periods. It's coming out of the same hole where they have sex from, where they shit, where they piss. Like, you're eating something out of that hole, right? Scramble up some tofu, bro. Tastes just as good. I'll give you guys a mad tofu scramble recipe. And from a health perspective, there's so much cholesterol in eggs. You get a massive dose of cholesterol. From a health perspective, it's like you can get all you need from plant-based food. So there are these sort of gray areas, and people have questions about them, and it's important, sure. But if you're still eating animal products, if you're still supporting animal exploitation, look at the bigger picture stuff before trying to find small exceptions, small ways in which, I want to get away with as much animal exploitation as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing you mentioned earlier, like with Jackson, like, let him make the choice. Let him be empowered with the facts and the truth to decide what he wants to do, right? Say if he becomes 20, 30, 40, then he exercises his free will, right, to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Now, personal choice is often used as a justification when people talk about their consumption of animal products. They say, well, it's my personal choice to eat meat. Okay, a personal choice is something like, I prefer to have blue socks or red socks. It's my personal choice is red socks.
Yeah.
Do you hear people say, oh, when it comes to child abuse, it's my personal choice to abuse children. It's my choice. Or to be racist, it's my personal choice to be racist. What we need to understand is there is a victim involved with that choice that people are making. It's not a personal choice if there's a victim involved. That's a choice that has a huge effect on someone's life.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good for me. Thank you.
It's a choice, but realize the consequences of that. So eating animals is not a personal choice. It's denying the right of life of other beings.
Yeah.
So it's how we frame these things as well, which can really help people connect and relate to the discussion and the discourse and the concepts. Because it's when we start connecting with it in those ways, well, you know, be less sexist or only be sexist on the weekend. If we want to support, when it comes to like animal rights and welfare, for example, we're probably going to end soon, but there's some big difference between rights and welfare. Animal welfare is about still supporting animal exploitation, saying that it's morally acceptable for us as humans to exploit animals,
but in a certain way.
We're going to kill animals in a humane way and treat them humanely, whatever that means. Doesn't mean shit for the animals if they're being a knife across their throat. Whereas animal rights says, no, animal exploitation is wrong. We don't have the right to use animals. We don't have the right
gray area
as property. And we want to abolish animal exploitation. So it's the same approach we took to human slavery. We said, human slavery is wrong. We're not going to regulate human slavery. We need to end this. And this is another area where I personally have that abolitionist approach to animal rights, which is where veganism comes into it. You're either supporting animal exploitation or you're not. And you can choose to no longer support animal exploitation and know that you're on the right side of history. You are supporting and on board with one of the most powerful shifts in human consciousness and making those connections and advocating for that expansion. But there are still people out there that are not vegan, that are still supporting animal exploitation, which is why it takes us to advocate, to speak up, to help other people make the connection. Because just because we're not contributing to something anymore doesn't mean it's still not happening.
Yeah.
The animals need us to speak up for them.
Use your voice.
And for complete liberation for animals. Get them out of the cages, get them living a life that's free without suffering, and just humans must just look after them. Because we have that power. Exercise that.
I love that. And I love that you brought it back to consciousness as well, because we are really in this time of the great awakening, and the truth is coming out, not only with this, but with everything happening, all the darkness happening on the planet at the moment. And it literally is, people are waking up to what the hell is going on. And we get to now choose out of our conditioning that we've been that's been holding us down and telling us this is what you should believe, and this is what it's always been like this. And you get to now choose a different way when it comes to absolutely everything, and be aware of what's going on. Like, there's so much secrecy in all of this stuff, and there's so much behind the scenes stuff that we can't even get into now. But there's an incredible...
I can do a summary in 1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute summary. Amazing. We're going to do that. But we are going to link some amazing documentaries and films. Like there's Vegan 2018, Vegan 2019 films by Plant-Based News that literally give you a massive rundown on all the things. And it's not like, I just want to tell you, for the people that, you know, don't want to see the animal cruelty, and I understand that, these 2018, Vegan 2018 and Vegan 2019, there's a lot more information based rather than showing you all that stuff that you don't want to see. But I will say that stuff that you don't want to see needs to be seen. It's the truth,
If it's
guys.
not good enough for your eyes, why is it good enough for you to eat or to put in your stomach?
But if you want to start on easy and you want to start on getting information, Vegan 2018 and Vegan 2019 from Plant-Based News, they're on YouTube. They're full feature films, and you can get a little bit extra information there as to what the hell is going on, which is a great way to start to get the truth. But let's hear a 1 minute summary from
this awareness, like throughout my years of reconnecting, of I'm peeling back through, getting through my programming, learning, exploring, studying. It's like this. Okay. So we've got these human-centered, these anthropocentric beliefs and ideas that have permeated our society. It's seeing humans as the most superior to everything, right? So we have a legal system that's human-centered, in which animals are considered property. Animals in the eyes of the law are objects. They're considered something, not a someone. Animals are seen as something to be owned and sold, right? So our legal system, as I've explained before, enables and supports animal exploitation, right? There's exemptions within the animal laws which allow industry to treat animals horribly, to exploit them in ways that is not humane, right? We have industry, which is so influential in the world, which is paying and supporting marketing and propaganda to keep humans disconnected from the consequences of their choices, selling people this humane, happy slaughter narrative bullshit. And people are eating it, people are consuming it, buying it. So we're not realizing actually what's happening, right? Then the medical industry and the doctors and the health industry, they're not telling people that eating a plant-based diet can reverse the biggest killers of humans. They're not telling people you can thrive and get everything you need on a plant-based diet. They're funded by industry. The school programs are teaching kids that you've got to have meat, eggs, and dairy. And this is all part of a good food pyramid. Mind you, they're changing in the world. Countries are taking like dairy off their food pyramid.
Canada,
so things are changing, right? So you've got the health industry, you've got the animal agriculture industry making a lot of money off exploitation, keeping people disconnected, keeping consumers purchasing their products through myths and secrecy and indoctrination. And we've got deep cultural conditioning that is disconnecting us from ourselves and our core values. And all of this is destroying our planet. It's affecting our global health and our health as individuals and the lives of animals. See the bigger picture, guys. This is systemic, institutionalized violence and oppression. Realize that and take a deep breath. Let that sink in and act on it to change that, to create a different world, because it doesn't need to be like that.
Yeah.
You have the power. Everyone has the power to co-create that reality. So step into it and lean in.
It's uncomfortable. Mic drop.
Pen drop.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was brilliant. Thank you for that. I think, and then if you tie that all into, especially for the people on this podcast that are like waking up to their spirituality, like this is all energy as well, guys. And if you start uncovering who you truly are, you are this person that is compassionate and kind and wants to, have this earth community and be a part of this earth community and make everyone thrive, everyone that's part of the earth community, including the earth. So that means you being your own personal health. And we didn't even get into health, but if you want to get into health, go and watch The Game Changers, go and watch Forks Over Knives, What the Health. Like, we'll link some of those into here. Like, there's so many ways that you can go. And guys, I know with the rise of all this information about being vegan and plant-based, whether it comes to health, animal cruelty, or environmentalism, there is the backlash and the rise of the noise against it. But you are smart people. Like, you can look at both sides of an argument and decide for yourself what you want to come away with. And I think this was my biggest shift with all of this, is that, especially what you were saying, like I decided in the beginning that I was environmentalist and I was going to do this for the environment. And then I was like, nope, I'm doing it for the animals and the environment. And then I found out more about health stuff. And I was like, cool, I'm doing it for the environment, for the animals, and for the health. And that totally shifted things for me, because I went through this journey of sort of doing it here and there, and, going backwards and forwards, and, going back into being a vegetarian versus being a vegan, and then being like a half a vegetarian, half a vegan. Like, I don't eat dairy, but now I eat eggs and all these kind of things. But at the end of the day, there's only one way. This is a journey to a culmination of all these ideas, which is basically enlightenment. It's basically awakening to the truth. And when you get there, you can start to understand that everything is interconnected. And especially if you're on a spiritual journey, we're not saying that if you're not vegan, you're not spiritual enough. Of course, like there's levels and intricacies.
You're still supporting animal exploitation.
Yeah, but when you start to awaken,
contribute to. So
it's energy. It's all energy, and deciding where you stand. Yes. Decide where you stand in this, and decide that, like, yes, it's hard, but decide where you want to take this to.
It's harder for the animals.
Yeah.
Us being non-vegan is harder for the animals. Put ourselves into their shoes. And, I used to refer to it as that personal journey of veganism, and it is to some extent, but like, the animals deserve better. They don't give a shit if we're on a journey. They just want to live free and not be harmed.
Yeah, make the switch.
Yeah. Like, and a lot of this information that I've shared and shared with your audience and brought to light and surfaced, this is like a quick dose of years and years and years and years and years of research, of questioning, of understanding, of peeling back. And even one of these topics can leave you feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. Even one of these facts can just get your whole perspective on the world just shattered in an instant, right?
Yeah.
But embrace it and just take some time to reflect on all of this, to question all the stats and facts that I've shared. Do the research for yourself. The truth is out there for those who seek it. So delve into that and ask yourself, who are you? What do you believe in? In what way are you living in integrity? In what ways are you aligned? And in what ways are you not? And just redefine that. Question your reality with animals and nature, and like, just take a breath as well, because a lot of these things are so confronting for people. It challenged me to my core, and there's a lot of dark shit happening in the world, and it takes us just reconnecting. So if anyone's feeling overwhelmed and, you know, this is like a bit too much and, oh my God, what is life? Good. Feel that.
Yeah, that's your
expansion.
awakening.
That's growth. Lean into that.
It's
and you're
fucking
going to come out on the other
uncomfortable.
side
It's fucking
more
scary.
aware. You can just...
I call it the beautiful chaos. It's like literally chaos, and you're like, what the actual fuck? And then you're like, and then you come through it. Like life is cyclical. You've got your summer, winter, autumn. I've got these all mixed up, but you've got all the seasons of the life, and you become, it's cyclical, and you get into the stage, especially with personal and spiritual development, that you are like, what the fuck? There's now new truth, and then you get through it, and you integrate it into your life, and then you come out the other side, and then you get new truths, and you're like, chaos, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful because you're growing as a human, you're raising your consciousness, and by you raising your own consciousness and awakening to this truth, you're helping other people do the same. So be that light, be the change, do your work. It helps
with other people's healing. Speak your truth. It's going to trigger people to confront their truth and their blocks and their resistance.
This is what We Are Wildfire is all about. It's about creating that wildfire. You are the change first, and you inspire others. Your fire sparks other people to ignite their own, and one by one we create a wildfire of change and awakening, and just beautiful people that are awake. And
people cannot support animal exploitation and not label themselves vegan. Don't call yourself a vegan. That's fine. Just don't support animal exploitation, which is being vegan. You know?
Take the label away and just do it.
Reconnect to your heart, reconnect to your values and beliefs, because in there is kindness, is compassion, is love, and
all the hippie stuff. Embrace being a hippie.
Don't let anyone take that away from you. And you know, animal rights and veganism is not a left or a right issue. It's not it transcends all of that. So
my gosh, this was an epic conversation, and we didn't even get into a whole lot of stuff. So I mean, please go do your own research. This is literally Alice in Wonderland type rabbit hole. So go and research that. But first, Scott, I want to thank you for coming on and having this epic conversation. We did say it was going to be a little bit longer. It's been 2 hours. So if you're still listening, thank you, listeners, for being here with us and going on this journey and to truth and awakening, and sharing Scott's story and all the good vibes. It was good.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for the invite and amazing chats, amazing discussion, and thank you for the space and opportunity. So I took lots of notes. I'm like, I want to get back to that. I want to get back to this. So there's so much out there.
It happens, hey? But if you want to get
anyone
more...
who wants to connect on social media, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. If you search at Earth Centered, ERTHCNTRED, and also on YouTube if you search my name, Scott Wallace. But when I get subscribers, and I can get Earth Centered going there as well.
Subscribe, guys, support the people.
Check out some more content, and I'd love to connect with you guys. If anyone has any questions at all, anything big or small, please get in touch. I'd love to support you through that, to give you some answers, to share my perspectives. I'm very open to that. If anyone who's deciding to embark on veganism and wants to make that shift and transition, do it. You will not regret it. Be disciplined in the start, and then just do your research with what you're eating. Look at the products and the ingredients list. You know, it's very, very simple. So,
amazing. Thank you, Scott. I'm going to end it there, and I just can't wait to delve into this deeper with you another time. And you know, come over to New Zealand. Let's do this in real life. Okay.
Do some presentations over there. That'd be great.
That would be amazing. Come and visit. Okay. Thank you so much.
Nicole.
Cheers.